Madam Chair, you're live.
Okay, thanks so much. So welcome to our January 5th, 2022 Annapolis Heritage Commission meeting. We're so happy to welcome you for New Year. And we have really a lot of items that are on our agenda today. They seem to kind of build throughout the last couple of days. And I'm going to begin with reading the purpose of our commission. We just talked about our commission and what is our work. The purposes of the commission's work is cultural heritage shall be defined as the legacy of places, artifacts, and intangible attributes of a group or society that are inherited from past generations, maintained in the present and bestowed for the benefit of future generations. And the commission shall consider as a primary component of programs and project development the educational value and public benefit associated with the commission's proposed activities. So we shall advise on and facilitate the development of programs and activities that increases the public awareness, appreciation, and preservation of the cultural heritage of the city of Annapolis. And with that, I welcome you and I thank you for your contributions. Let's begin with the first agenda item, which is for you to review the minutes of our November's meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, then I would entertain a motion.
So move.
Thank you,
Second.
Karen. And who second?
Seconded.
Okay, thanks, Sam. So we have all in favor of accepting and approving the minutes, the meeting minutes from November 11th. Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Thank you very much. Minutes accepted and approved. So now let's go to our new business. And our first new business is Karen Brown is going to share some information. And Karen and Ellie have been working on the Sinclair Wright signage issues. So Karen, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Marcy. And Ellie, if it's okay, I might be deferring to you as well, just to provide some background information and context for the commission. But the purpose of discussion for today is that that there was a past intention of having a plaque erected for Sinclair, Wright, and also for Pip and Zastro in recognition of this was something that a past alderman, Dick Israel, had willed to the city the funds to have these erected somewhere in the historic district. And so the commission had weighed in on the language that would be associated with these interpretive plaques in 2019. And I know it was very last minute and I apologize, but I did send out just for historic context so that you all knew in the 2019 annual report, the Heritage Commission had weighed in on this and had finalized some language, one in recognition of Sinclair Wright and the second one for Pip and Zastro. The location of the Sinclair Wright plaque was to be erected somewhere associated with the historic Annapolis building at 99 Main Street, and the Pip and Zastro one was still to be determined. And it was also my understanding that Minor Carter was working as kind of settling the estate for Alderman Israel and helping finalize that and push it forward. Ellie and I have been in conversation in 2020 and 2021 about trying to pick up that ball and move it forward. And Ellie, I don't know if you want to say anything else about this at this point, and then I can talk a little bit about a proposal that she and I have recommending for how we could best move forward.
Right. I think you did a good job on background. I guess I just want to reiterate that this was a bequest of Alderman Dick Israel. And so consequently, we wrote, the city council wrote two resolutions, one resolution back in 2016 after the death for a Sinclair Wright legacy tablet, and the other one for the Pip and Zastro legacy tablet. a constituent, Minor Carter, as you know, it was the executor. So ideally, we'd like to prioritize, I think, especially now, the St. Clair Wright plaque. And Karen has some good news subsequent to what we've discussed before with John on path forward. So I'll let her continue.
Okay, so I am going to attempt to share my screen and show you all that we have in a storage unit a past plaque in honor of Sinclair Wright. It needs a little bit of cleaning up, but it's rather timely, and I think the language still holds true. And as many of you may know, Historic Annapolis has just recently opened a new museum at 99 Main Street. It's called the Museum of Historic Annapolis. And we have a brand new, I think, state-of-the-art permanent exhibition called Annapolis: An American Story. And as an aside, we are very interested in providing an opportunity for the commission to go through it with the curator and the project manager, who is my colleague, Mary Angela Hardwick. She's a VP of Education for HA, and along with Robin Maddie and Glenn Campbell, who were the strong contributors to that exhibit. So I would like very much to have an opportunity to take you all through the exhibition. I think it's really well done. I know Robert and Marcy and John have all had a chance to go through. But in the interim, we are doing an actual grand opening, and the date of that is going to be March 19th. And associated with that would be sort of the formal ribbon cutting. Is that we wanted to have signage erected on the exterior of the building. And we thought, well, how wonderful and fortuitous that we found this sign that still quite works, that could possibly honor the legacy of Mr. Israel, and also would save us some money because we could repurpose and reuse this existing sign. Now, I know that this is not the language that was approved by the commission, so I first wanted to present it to you all for your consideration. And then if it's favorably received by the commission, then I will work with John to submit it to the Historic Preservation Commission. I don't know if you can read it, so I can read the language for you if that makes it a little bit easier. It says, with admiration and gratitude from friends of historic preservation and the city of Annapolis, in honor of Sinclair Wright as the quintessential visionary who more than anyone else saved historic Annapolis for the future. So
where did you find it again, Karen? Where did you discover this wonderful Christmas present?
We have a couple of storage units at an offsite storage where some of you might know that we've been working closely with the city most recently about managing the Archaeology in Annapolis program. This is something that's been going on for years. And we also have sort of this architectural salvage in one unit. And we were doing just a cursory inventory of what was in that and found this and a couple other plaques that had been removed. I don't know exactly the date of it or where it was located previously. We're not sure if it was on 99. We think it may have been over by the 1 Martin Street building. Anyway, it's a nice plaque, and I thought it kind of met the intent of what the city was hoping to accomplish with Dick Israel, but also what we want to do to honor Sinclair Wright's legacy. And the building is informally known as the Sinclair Wright Center. So again, it is just kind of allows us to do both things at once. So
I remember the sign being up, and I wondered why it was gone all of a sudden, because I'm talking about many years ago. It was always up, and I thought, what happened to that sign? I think a couple of us said, I wonder why we need a new sign, because it was a really nice sign at one time. So I'm thrilled that you found this, and even though it was not the approved language that this commission developed and approved, took us quite a while to agree with it. I still think this language works. And I'm not sure of the procedure on now accepting the new language, since we had already approved the previous language. So I'll turn to my vice chair, Robert Warden, and ask him if he knows the procedure.
Well, I'm not quite sure. I suppose we just need a resolution to deactivate the one the old text and adopt the new. But yeah, I'm sure we'll have some discussion. I have a couple of questions I would want to ask
Okay, thank you, Robert.
before we adopt new language.
Mhm.
Does anybody else have any other comments, or Robert, you want to ask your
Well,
question?
Yeah, my question, Karen, you said this will save us money. Who's the us that this will save money for? Because if there's a bequest from Richard Israel, the money's coming out of his estate. And is that money going to the city, to historic? Who's that money going to? And if it isn't used for this plaque, what will it be used for then? Will that somehow bollocks up what Minor Carter's trying to do, closing that estate?
Sure. I defer to Alderwoman Tierney about that. I don't know how much money it was. I knew it was limited, and I didn't know if there was enough money to actually create, fabricate, and install a high quality sign, two high quality signs for it. So my thought was the cost to clean this up, and I think we would request the city to help us with the installation. So none of the money would go to HA, of course. But then that would allow the flexibility for the creation of the Pip Zastro sign. But I leave that to Ellie if she has any insights.
Oh, if
Right,
I could,
yeah.
if I could speak to it,
Yeah,
we,
thanks.
and I just have a number in my head, but I think it's $1,200. It might be
Oh, okay.
$2,000. But
More-
what I'm running into on everything is everything costs more suddenly, and it takes longer. So this checks some boxes. The Pip Zastro plaque has not been estimated yet. I haven't received an estimate for that, so I should have that. And as soon as I do, I'll send it out, and then we could know. But I would imagine if there's a surplus, it could go back, or it could serve for maintenance. So we never have a budget for maintenance of anything. we build it, we preserve it, but to maintain it, oof.
Yeah.
So just a thought there.
Mhm. Yeah, we had to do, Robert, we had to do some forensic science to figure out about this money. The estate has been closed. We did receive $1,000 for each plaque. And then with matching, we would match each with $1,000. So that's for the plaque, it's 2,000. And what we're trying to do with John is, because of the cost increase, et cetera, is to do two at the same time, not knowing the estimate. So what Karen meant by saving us money is that we don't have to do any sort of economy of scale in the ordering and all. We resolved one, and then we can focus on the other. What happens if there's money left over? I believe because the will is closed, or lack of a better word, that the city money then just returns back to, I guess, the general fund or what have you. But I can find out for sure what happens to that money.
I just think it's good for the record to know, since we're talking about money, that we know where it's coming from, where it's going to, and what the amounts are.
Yeah, I think we need the estimate before we close out any financials.
Yes.
And we'll need the estimate we'll have to install this, and then the estimate for the Pip and Zastro, which I believe the wording is that's set to go, but John has to pursue a source. So, yeah.
So in addition to the money, are people comfortable with the language of the original plaque saying that Sinclair Wright was the key person I know I wasn't around during her tenure, and I understand she was a force of nature, but if we're comfortable with the language, then it seems like a no-brainer. We like the language, we approve the language, and then the city gets the benefit of being able to repurpose the money and maybe, return some money to city funds. So it sounds like a win-win for me, if we're comfortable with the language of the plaque.
Well,
I
that's
would
a
say.
very
from my
good
own-
point. What do people feel about the language?
I think the language is, I'm sorry, David, I think the language is fine, but the language of the previous plaque had been run by the family and they had something to say about it. I don't know about this plaque. Why was it taken down? Maybe they didn't like what it said. If that's an issue.
Excellent point. Excellent point, Robert, because I was the one who had the conversation with her granddaughter. So I don't know how I feel about that. I feel as though I probably should. I'm sure she would be fine with it. I can't imagine she wouldn't be, because the initial conversations where they were thrilled with anything. And she didn't, in my opinion, I did call her and had a couple conversations with her. She wasn't married to any language. We were suggesting language. We were hoping, when Minor and I talked about it, we were hoping she would come up with language, and she just had no suggestions. If we had something that we were suggesting, she was okay with us running it by her, but I don't feel as though she was married to our suggested language. But I'm also okay with calling her up and asking her about it again.
I would suggest calling her up and just making sure. I actually like the wording of the old plaque more than the wording of the new plaque. And my only question would be, does Annapolis in general feel that she, more than anyone else, was responsible for it?
Well, I can say from my own experience, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay. I mean, I wasn't here when she was here, and everything I've heard about it, she was the driving force.
There had been efforts prior to Sinclair Wright, but no one was as effective as she. And I can also say that the house I grew up in on Maryland Avenue, I probably wouldn't have grown up in if it hadn't been for an easement. And I think $10,000 to help my parents restore the house, which was a lot of money in 1969.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm prejudiced, sorry.
No, that's an excellent point, John. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, I agree. I've never heard anyone say anything other than it was her, and she was a force of nature. So I think if it's okay with everyone, someone should probably, do we have more discussion on the topic?
The only other thing I wanted to mention is we have had conversations with her granddaughter as well about their desire. They still are very wedded to the idea of calling the building the Sinclair Wright Center. So I am more than happy to reach out to her. You know, if this is approved by the Heritage Commission, give her a call. I mean, in fact, part of our discussion about our opening was to invite her to come. She lives in Seattle now, but to invite the family to come to this, dedication ceremony and ribbon cutting. So
I think that's a great suggestion, Karen. If since you're going to call her anyway,
yeah.
If this commission approves the resolution or comes up with a resolution for us to approve, it would be great for you to move forward and have that conversation with her.
Not a problem.
So
I move that we accept the wording that's on the recovered plaque from Historic Annapolis. And if Kim has seen that wording, she could add that into the resolution. And that we do this conditionally based on the receipt from the city of the cost estimates and fabrication of the two plaques, which I understand from Ellie are now out somewhere.
I think John can speak.
Could we, for the record, just repeat that wording from the plaque?
Sure. And Kimberly, if it's easier, I can also email you this kind of white paper I put together.
Perfect. Thank you.
Is that your preference?
It is. Thank you so much.
Not a problem.
So we're looking for a second to Robert's motion.
Second,
Thank you. All approve the motion?
aye.
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 Okay, it's passed.
And
So, so the motion is passed. Karen, if you could move forward with working with Ellie on that, we'd really appreciate it. And if you hear anything back before our next meeting in 2 months, I'm sure you'll let us know. If not, we'll talk about it more in a couple months. But it would be so nice because I know that Minor's not well, and we'd really like to have this taken care of, so we can have this event in March. Do we have the date of that event?
The date, we just set it up today, and it looks like it's March 19th. That's
Okay.
Saturday. But I would like to reiterate our desire to bring the commissioners through the exhibition. So I will follow with an email to everyone. And if we want to find a date and a time that works for most of you, we'd be delighted to take you through.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Thank you, Karen. I think everyone would really enjoy it. And if you haven't had an opportunity, thank you for that.
If I could say one thing, Karen, if you're gonna send the thing you sent to us to Kimberly, there's a mistake in the
I caught it.
written thing.
Save.
So there's a
Save.
D that needs to go on saved.
Yep, I got you.
So,
I saw.
okay, on the plaque, it's right. I checked, but
I did too.
so if you're gonna send it to her. Okay, thank
David,
you.
you're very good. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. So our next item, I believe, Ellie, please join us if you'd like to listen. It's interesting conversation.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we'd love having you. So the next topic is something I've been struggling with, I will be honest, and that's this whole idea of interpretive signage. And it's not a new concern for me. It's actually many years. And my concern is I'm concerned about when we approve signage as our Annapolis Heritage Commission. I worry about first the construction of the signs themselves. I'm not an expert, and I don't know if anyone on the, I guess maybe Karen is our expert and John's our expert on signage and the construction, the composition of signage. And I've been talking to Four Rivers Heritage area about it, and Carol Benson for the past couple of years. And she agrees that we spend a lot of money on signage, and yet we're not sure how long the signage we approve, the verbiage we approve, and the construction of signs, is it appropriate that we're approving signs that delaminate and fade? We all know what we're talking about here. The signs on West Street are just horrible. I mean, and it's become obvious to the mayor's office, to the point where you might remember about 18 months ago, the signs at Susan Campbell Park were replaced, and they were just atrocious until somebody pointed them out to the mayor, and he went, "You're right. Let's fix these." I've been working with Carol Benson, and in preparation for a new workshop that she's organizing, she has decided to invite a gentleman, and let me see if I can share my screen, because there's a couple things going on here. First of all, it's the construction of the signs. Second of all, it's the language on the signs themselves. And third of all, I will say there's this whole idea, and it comes from a topic that Karen and I both read this past Sunday in the Washington Post, Racial reckoning focuses on historical markers. I don't know who else has seen this article. A couple of you have. All right. Well, we're going to I'll send the link out to you. I had actually made copies to share with you today in our meeting, if we were meeting face to face. And I think that we should really think about these kinds of topics when we're approving language for signs, but approving the signs ourselves, because think about that our signs might not be of the highest quality. So are we taking the lowest bid? And is that the prudent way to go? And I say this to you again, I'm not an expert, and but we do have experts out there. So we're putting together a workshop. It's going to be either the 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks in February, the first 2 weeks in March, and it's going to be organized by the Four Rivers Heritage Area. And the gentleman, and let me see if I can share this. I have put something together to share with you. So can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
So here's our planning document. Carol Benson and I have been working on this. And the idea is that we would have a 1-hour workshop available to everyone, everyone who's interested. And even if you can't be there for the 1-hour workshop, we're going to record it and share it out so everyone can have it. The speaker is David Guinea, is how I think you pronounce his last name. He's done a lot of work with the Baltimore Heritage Area and also with the Heart of the Civil War's Heritage Area. He's previously worked for the National Park Service and has done a lot of work at the Harper Ferry site. He's now an independent contractor. He's actually not charging us for this workshop. So it's wonderful that he's offering these services to us. He would like us as one of the stakeholders to provide some questions to him, and he's going to put together a panel. And so far we have these 4 questions, and you can read over those, but also I'll share this document with you so you can have it, because what I would like you all to be thinking about, I don't expect you to come up with your own questions now for me, but we have the next couple weeks to work on this. But think about the questions that you're curious about. You see what we're worrying about. Number 4 question was my question, is what are the recommendations about how to go about the removal of signage that is inaccurate? And you all know why I'm asking that question. This guy has all the answers for that. He has what he says. He's a very interesting gentleman. You can Google him and look at the work he's done. But he has worked with a lot of sensitive areas in Baltimore and figured out ways to, what he says, and this is his word, to use weasel language to describe something. I'm not exactly sure what weasel language is, but whatever that means. But he's an authority on some of the topics we are concerned with. And I say this to you because it's he's aware, and he also points out that these issues for us in Maryland are going to get greater. We talked about what's going on in Pennsylvania, and it's actually the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission that is taking a look at over 2,500 markers. So I say this to you because, let's be honest, in the world of inclusiveness, this is going to be an issue that we need to consider. There's another document I'd like to share with you. And hold on a minute. I don't know what I did wrong there. Okay, here's my next one that I want to share with you. And this I find amazing. And I did ask the Naval Academy permission to share this. Now, Reed Bowman has already seen this document because Reed and I are trained Watermark and Naval Academy tour guides. And I will just give you a moment to take a look at it. But this just came out from the Naval Academy. And I talked to Karen about this and a couple other historians that I really respect. And I want to say that if the Naval Academy can have a policy change in the way that they are now interpreting monuments, you know for a fact that our commission, is also going to be struggling with these issues as well. Now, I find this memo from the Naval Academy amazing, because we're talking about the Naval Academy, a federal entity that doesn't easily make changes and make such amazing recommendations. But it's such a dramatic change in the fact that Tecumseh isn't even Tecumseh in T-Court, that the Naval Academy tour guides and the Watermark tour guides have been speaking about for years. I don't even know how many years, maybe 30 years. But now we know that it did not even depict Tecumseh, that the statue is actually Tamenon, who was the chief of the Delaware Indians, not Tecumseh. So there's this whole discussion of whether or not it's appropriate to paint Tecumseh, and then we realize it wasn't even Tecumseh. So you can imagine the kind of work that they put into making this policy change. And then the last paragraph, I think, is profound. And Tamenon is best known as a lover of peace and friendship, who signed a peace treaty with William Penn in 1683 that lasted for 3/4 of a century. And Chief Tamenon's peaceful leadership brought people together, and he was endowed with every good and noble qualification. And the point is here that, and we've been painting this statue like SpongeBob. So it just is unfortunate that it has turned into what we now know has been happening. So I applaud the efforts of the Naval Academy. This to me is really an outstanding effort. And I say this to you as commissioners, that I think we have our work cut out for us in the future. And I have this gnawing urge in the pit of my stomach that we need to be certainly more inclusive and sensitive and careful with the decisions that we make. I urge you all to attend this workshop. And I know you're all very busy people. And if you can't attend, I certainly will send out the link to you. But in our efforts to prepare for this landmark workshop, interpretive landmark signage workshop, I'd really love for you to give me some of your questions that you might have and you might like the panel to address. So if you can be thinking about that in the next 2 weeks, and just send me an email with a question that you might find is appropriate, I'll certainly share it with the Four Rivers Heritage Area. And whether it's from your perspective as a member of the Annapolis Heritage Commission, or you're a member of another organization, that's fine by us as well. We're just looking for stakeholders' input. So we'd really appreciate that. And I just wanted to update you on our concerns. And when I say ours, it's the Heritage Commission's concerns and concerns that I've been having and speaking with some other states. So it's more than just a Maryland problem or a Maryland situation. Do you have any questions about the direction we're moving with the Four Rivers presentation?
No.
I do have
Okay.
one question.
Sure.
Robert, I seem to recall years ago there was some sort of attempt at an inventory of interpretive signage in and around Annapolis. Do we have a master list? There's so many types of signs, and
Yeah,
some are municipal and some are county and some are local. Roadside signs versus interpretive signs. Where would we even begin?
Yes, Karen, this commission worked on that project. I know David and I worked on it together in our large neighborhood, and I think others worked on it here and there. We began to compile a list, which must be somewhere. I may have some of it. Anyway, it kind of came to a halt because many of these markers are made of bronze and so forth. And a respected member of the community and an old friend of mine who's very involved in getting signs up in his neighborhood said, this is nothing more than a list for the metal thieves to identify where to get
Oh,
bronze markers. And in historic Annapolis, how many of those little brass tags have been stolen off all over the historic district from the HA historical markers. So I think that particular project kind of came to a halt because we took that advice to heart and quit doing it. It's not to say you couldn't do such an inventory, but it's making it public. And unfortunately, government should be making things public that we put together.
that's very interesting, Robert. I can see a benefit for having an inventory. You're right, Karen. That seems to make sense to me. But just to know, and just to know where they are and what they are, and but I mean, all I dare to say to you, because we've had this discussion before on the delaminated signs in our communities. I mean, I was thinking, do I even say to this commission, like, take a look at your own backyard or West Street, or, fortunately in Eastport, we're replacing the signs now, but I don't know what to say about that. You're right. Would it have to be a public list if we had the inventory? Reed's shaking his head, and he's our lawyer. So Reed.
Well, I'm not making a legal opinion. Like Robert was saying, it's just good governance. That why would we keep a secret list of our historic sites? And if you get a couple of thieving things, and maybe that's one of the issues you can raise is how do you prevent vandalism to signs? Something to add to the list, but between vandalism and being transparent and public with our information, I have to go with being transparent. As painful as it would be to see any sign go missing or be vandalized. My 2 cents.
Thank you. Karen, has HA taken any steps to protect your historic markers?
No, actually, we have a list. Robert and David were helpful at a couple of years ago with helping identify new marker candidates. But we actually have a list on our website of marked properties. But to Robert's earlier comment, we have the little brass insets that do go missing. I don't know intentionally or if they just fall off because they're just adhesive.
I think it's intentional. They were screwed in, those screws actually fall off, and it's all over. They've gone missing.
Yeah. So,
and people pulled Harvey Poe's house. They pulled the copper gutters off his house one night with a pickup truck and went away with them. And the metal thieves are very busy. And I've got some suspicions. I've looked for some flat markers at St. Mary's cemeteries I've seen before that I can't find now. I'm getting concerned about there's always a market for bronze and brass and so forth.
What about in the future doing things in aluminum?
Yeah, our markers are cast aluminum. We just have the brass insets, but they are aluminum.
That's a very good point, John. And maybe that could be one of our questions to our consultant. Sounds like a good question to craft, doesn't it?
Yes.
So without any further, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to give us input on this workshop that we're planning, and invite you. And I certainly will when we land on the date. And if anyone's interested on being a panelist and working with us on this, we'd love to have you. So let us know if you're interested. And I I'd like to really keep our meetings on time, and it's I can see what time it is right now, and we do have some items that we are going to get to in just a moment. But I did want in old business, but I did want to give you all an opportunity for some general announcements.
I have one. You all may recall a couple months ago, Marcy and I talked to everybody about the master interpretive plan at City Dock and the surrounding area. We have a final draft that has been submitted to the National Park Service and been accepted. So I will be sending out a copy of that to everyone. But I think it's a document we're really proud of. It was a small team of staff from HA and from the National Park Service. Does a little historic background and context. And it sort of is a thematic, identifies principal themes and sub-themes, and then with some recommendations for future programming in and around City Dock. So I'll make sure that everybody gets an electronic copy of this following the meeting. Thanks, Marcy.
If I can just ask a quick question to Karen.
Sure.
This is out of curiosity, pardon my ignorance, but what is the national component, what is the formal designation for City Dock specifically that it makes NPS have a right to review the interpretive plan?
Well, it's interesting. This was a project that we did. It was funded by the National Park Service. This was something that they were interested in. There's a National Park Service Chesapeake office that has become much more active and engaged in and around the interpretation in City Dock area, and specifically the Captain William Burtis House is one of their projects of interest. But Sam, to your point, initially we had just planned to have it commensurate with the City Dock Reimagined project, which is kind of a tight geographic area. But you really can't talk about the history of City Dock, that area, without talking about the Naval Academy and the maritime history with Eastport. So we expanded a little bit more. And then Rhonda Pindell Charles felt that it was really important to kind of tie in her ward and the significance of the Mills Parole area. So it was sort of a discontiguous study area, and a little bit more organic. And it broadened as we knew that, again, our partners are important in terms of the thematic historic context associated with the district.
Thanks. And I also just remembered, yes, there's also I forget the exact designation of the John Smith National Historic Trail, but I realized that City Dock's right on that too.
Yeah,
but thank you.
Absolutely. No problem. Any other questions? That's all I had to add, Marcy.
Good question. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Karen. So I just wanted to let you know that the end of the report for our commission is due, I guess overdue. And I'm going to work with my vice chair to write that up. And it's my first year doing this. So I'm going to lean heavily on my vice chair for direction on that. And I do believe, Robert, help me out with this, that we need to send it out to the commission for approval. Is that correct?
Yes, I think that's correct. And as I recall, Shari would put those reports together. They're fairly simple. They're not extremely detailed, but taking our minutes and kind of cobbling together our achievements, and then presented that to us. So, and when she's back from back in the saddle, then maybe that's something we could work with her on. Okay. It was not a complicated process. It was very easy for me when I was chair.
Okay, thank you, Robert. And so I'll work with you and John and Sherry and see, make sure we get that done. It came to my attention that it hadn't been completed yet. So thank you for that. And then let's turn to old business. John has an update for us on the Slaveport project.
So I sent out, and of course this was fairly last minute, the approved new language, and this was approved from Stuart Pittman's office, that was sent by Janice Hayes Williams. I guess it was later this afternoon. I think we had 3 versions sent today, but it's an email. I don't know if everyone had a chance to look at it. The changes are truly minor. Let's see, I haven't marked them here, but there's the removal of a comma in the 3rd paragraph, and the date has been corrected to 1767. The changes are very, very small. It doesn't change the meaning, but it's punctuation and accuracy. So somehow, and I didn't notice this, Maryland Gazette advertisement at the top was written as 1776. It was actually 1767, so that was corrected. I can't believe that we didn't see that, but in fact, and I didn't go back to cross-reference. But has anyone looked at this? Has anyone had an opportunity to see this?
John, I didn't receive it. I'm sorry.
Karen, you might not have,
No.
but I think I sent it to you too. And it was, I think I sent it out at like 4:15. With emails back and forth. So it might be difficult, and I don't know that I can share it on the screen.
Maybe you could send it.
Again, right?
Maybe you could send it. So are those, does anyone have a question or concern about the edits?
So I'm sorry. So these are minor edits based on what we approved at the meeting when Janice presented to us last November.
That's correct.
Okay. All right.
And part of it is based on the county's input.
Okay.
And they're truly minor. I thought they might have been bigger because there was plenty of talk about it. In the end, they're absolutely minor.
Okay. Well, if they're grammatical minor edits that are not substantive, with the exception of the date change, I have no problem with accepting it with staff review.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but.
I agree with Karen. I actually did see the edits, and it was just over a series of emails all day today, but everyone was just period, comma, something as that. So other than the date change, I didn't see anything. And the last one was from Stuart Pittman's office. So I'm okay with it. Does anyone else want to review it any further?
No.
Okay, so are we okay with moving it forward? I don't know that we need to, do we need to approve it again, or?
I think for the record, you should have a resolution.
Okay.
The
well, then
city has had problems without having resolutions on certain issues that we've been involved in the
Okay.
past. So always good to cover ourselves.
All right, so I would like to entertain a motion.
I move we accept the wording based on staff review, the with the minor edits. So let me restate that. I move that we accept the minor edits that have been sent to staff and staff has conveyed to us for the slave port marker.
Anyone second?
Second.
Okay, all approved?
Aye.
Aye.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for that. It's been noted and approved. And then the last old business is our favorite old business, and that's Washington Rochambeau signage. I have made contact. I have emailed two different people. I've kind of had a casual conversation with Robert and Karen about what to do with this. And the idea was that we would invite members of the Washington Rochambeau committee to our meeting. And so I reached out to two people, and neither one got back to me. And I spoke with somebody I knew who had acquaintances with one of the members. And she said, well, she would try to help me to have someone contact me. That hasn't worked out so far. So my other idea was, I'm still working on that. I still would like to invite someone to talk to us. The most local person, unless anybody knows anyone else, is Mark Carrata. And I checked his email and then checked again, and he still hasn't responded to me. Does anyone on this commission have a contact with someone who's going to answer an email from me?
No.
Okay, then I will continue pursuing the list of the people that's on the Washington Rochambeau website and asking them to respond to us, invite them to a meeting. The other thought I had, and we did talk about this, I believe. Maybe we didn't, maybe it was in my mind. Help me with this. I thought maybe we should speak to the chairperson of the Commission for Art and Public, the Art in Public. Is that what it is? Public art.
Public places.
Okay, art in public places. What do you think about that idea? About inviting the chairperson to one of our meetings so we could have a better communication on how things get approved. The reason
Excellent
I say,
idea.
okay, thank you. The reason I say this is this is not the first time this has happened to us, that they approved something that was really in our ballpark to entertain and approve and review. So I was thinking if we had the chairperson come to one of our meetings, we could kind of introduce ourselves to this person and say, oh, by the way, this is what we do. We'd like to work with you. If you get a sign that's going to be in the public, understand that that's in our ballpark and really not in yours. So I was trying to think of a polite way to avoid this happening again. And I'm a big fan of going through procedures and processes, but we can say maybe they didn't know, but I do think there's other issues here, and I think we all are concerned with those issues. All I'm saying is we're not giving up on this yet. And
Marcy,
yes.
I want to say it's about 2 years ago, I had an email conversation with Genevieve, who, I don't know if she's still the chair, was chair then. And she fully agreed, and she even offered to intercede on our behalf. Of course, that went nowhere. She did the intercession, but it wasn't received. It was received as well as our own plea to the mayor's office. Let me put it that way. But I think she is certainly aware now more than ever before that if there's wording on a marker or plaque or whatever, that it needs to come before a commission. And she would agree to that. I still think it's a great idea to invite her or whoever it is now to one of our meetings to get better acquainted face to face. That's always a good practice.
Well, then, thank you for that, Robert. I will reach out to her and invite her to our next Heritage Commission. And I will still pursue the avenue that I'm assuming these people, I've certainly put it in the, they know why I'm trying to reach out to them. So I'm going to keep pursuing it. I'm going to just go down the list of everybody's on the website and send them an email and see what they say to me, because it's kind of ridiculous. And it's, as you know, these markers aren't just here, they're everywhere. But it annoys me every time I walk over the Eastport Bridge. And of course, the sign that is correct is delaminated and falling apart. So, you know, honestly, I want to yell out the window, don't read that sign, read this one. But anyway, that's my own little pet peeve with that sign. And the other sign next to it that's falling apart. Karen?
Marcy, to that point, you know, we would invite AIC PPC to come here, but could you also ask if you know, a representative from the Heritage Commission speak at their next meeting so that all the members are informed about where our role and responsibility lies, and to make sure that there's coordination when there's things such as signage.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I absolutely can do that. And I look forward to having a better communication with them. And, you know, we're all on the same page. We shouldn't be working against each other. And communication is always a nice way to start. And hopefully in the next 2 months, we'll be able to meet face to face and invite the chairperson.
Yeah. And in the meantime, I'll ask HA staff, you know, we have a pretty extensive database if we have any contact information for Mark. So I'll see if there's anything I can come up with, I'll get back to you.
Well, I have 2 emails from him, 2 email addresses, and I actually searched and said, I saw that he's answered this. So I think he's just ignoring me.
Got it. Okay.
But if I can find a phone number, I will definitely be calling them too. So I've got Carol Benson looking as well. So,
Thank you.
But do we have any other? I think that's the end of our. That's all the agenda items that I have. Does anyone else have anything to add? Other than to stay happy and healthy and happy new year, and love working with all of you smart people, and looking forward to doing more good work together. And I'd be happy to entertain a motion for adjournment.
Well, can I just say this has been a pleasure. Thank you all for your work, and you're such a gracious chair.
Thank you. And join us again, Ellie. We loved having you today.
Oh, and what is the building, Reed, behind you?
That's Robert Todd Lincoln's summer estate in Manchester, Vermont. I had a chance to visit there this summer, and I knew I'd been reading about Grant over the summer, and then this was kind of the next thing about learning a little bit more about Lincoln's son. So it's also a pretty house, so you can't beat it. It's a beautiful day. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks so
Thank you,
much.
Marcy.
Thanks.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Marcy.
Oh, but
Thanks,
wait a
everyone.
minute.
Have a good day.
We need to adjourn.
Oh,
Motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second,
All approved.
all approved.
Aye.
Thank you
Aye,
so
aye, aye.
much.
Aye.
Take
good
care.